confusing time, like growing up very like the most vivid dreams and being so at the time psychic, but not having the language and the experience around me to really understand and foster these gifts.
Welcome to the Phase 4 podcast, inspired by Vishen Lakhiani and Ajit Nawalkar, co-founders of EverCoach, a division of Vine Valley. In this podcast, we speak to coaches and creatives about where they were, where they are, and where they are going. This is the intersection of what we focus on expands, and your story is your superpower. My guest today is Megan Blust. She's an intuitive healer and an embodiment coach. And today we're going to talk about all that and more. And Megan, welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Oh my gosh, it's so lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely grateful. I kind of always begin with people's story and just tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you ended up in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Megan, obviously. I am born and raised in New Jersey, but now I actually live in Southern California in a beautiful place called Joshua Tree, all the fun desert vibes. And, my story really starts, there's so many different starting points, but I think really for me, how I got into this space is when my Saturn returned, as a lot of people's do. I was working in corporate America. I always very much growing up I'm an eldest daughter. So, always wanted to, really make my parents proud and do what I was told and, really live this life that I thought would bring me happiness. So getting that corporate job and working in tech and living in the city and building this life for myself. Right. And after a few years of living that life and then realizing that I was no happier than I had been previously, when my grandfather wound up passing away, very close to my 27th birthday, everything in my Saturn started returning. Everything really started to change for me. And, I think everyone kind of reached that point in their life where you realize you're doing something for a while and then you're like, is this it? Is this really I just work here forever and I just work forever and this is just all I'm meant to do. And this experience that I went through, really just reminded me of my own magic. I remember being able to see things when I was younger and never really being able to be understood. And my mom being like, who you're playing with? And I'm like, my friend Sarah. And then there was no one there. And so it was always a really confusing time, growing up very the most vivid dreams and being so at the time psychic, but not having the language and the experience around me to really understand and foster these gifts. And so a lot of my adult life, I kind of just shut it down. And it wasn't until this point of awakening, I dove into everything I possibly could. Oracle was my gateway drug, astrology, really just dove in. I got into everything I possibly could. And from there, for my human design, folks, I'm a projector, a 1-3. So my investigator self, I just dove into absolutely everything I can get my hands on. Astrology, human design, psychics, tarot, mediumship, energy work, energy healing. And I just dove deep and I was like, oh my God, I'm here to do so much. I'm here to, what I love most about my corporate job was being able to help people and support people. I was an executive assistant. And so I was like, I wonder if I can do, bring this magic into this space. And that's when I started doing, corporate events with astrology and human design. And then it entered me into this deeper space of when I was doing my own inner work and really healing myself and my inner child. And I was like, wow, I can, this is such a beautiful gift that I have that I can share with everyone. And it wasn't until I reclaimed my voice, maybe that was 3 years after that, and really understanding what reclaiming my voice went and meant to me, and really owning that there's so much power in my voice and it's actually a part of my gifts. And that's when I started channeling light language and all this stuff really started coming through. And I realized that so many, especially women, that I was around, have this belief that they're just here to live like this, a settling life and a mediocre life. And, they have the job and everything looks perfect on paper, but we're here for so much more. And so it's when I started my practice of being, this intuitive healer and embodiment coach, really here to help women like get into the feeling of their body, of knowing who they are and how they're here to be, and really like live boldly and like claim it from the rooftops and claim their space and no longer be the little amicable good girl. And so that's my whole spiel.
Yeah, no, it's good, right? The very end part is like definitely feminine and from masculine, where you're feeling it, you're embodying it, instead of, like you said earlier, there was more masculine where I think this is what I'm supposed to do. All the adults are telling me this is what I'm supposed to do, but it doesn't really feel right. I feel like I was made for more.
Exactly.
Your story is very similar to mine. So like I had this spiritual awakening is the only thing I can call it. Maybe somebody might call it a midlife crisis, but anyway, the whole thing looked different when I came to the other side, and it happened very fast. I just wanted all the knowledge. And it was the same as that. Like I had the job, I had the perfect life, like 2.5 kids, 2.5 cars, 2.5 dogs, like everything, house, perfect. And then it's like, but is this it? And like now we just keep going until 65, and the idea of like, oh, you can retire and with security and like, yeah, but you missed your life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually see that a lot with my mom just sent me a text and she was like, oh, we're celebrating like we just paid off our mortgage. And I'm like, yes, Mom. I'm like, Mom, so happy for you. But I know what it also like took for her to get there. Like she's worked the same job for years of her life. And when I remember even asking her, like, because she's a nurse. And so I was like, what made you want to be a nurse? She's like, oh, my grandmother, like, oh, my mom just told me. And when I think back at that time, back in like the 80s and 90s, like, nurse was a very acceptable career for a woman to go into. I remember her telling me she was even scared of blood. And so I was like, I wonder what if like my mother, Marianne, like had, and that's really what I do this work for. Because I think, yeah, back in the day, they did call it a midlife crisis because it didn't happen until a lot later, right? And I feel like now, we are so much more, I don't know if it's called the age of Aquarius, like, I don't even know what to really call it, but it's like we are so much more in tune with, I think, ourselves. And we start to notice the signs more and more where, I'm like, wow, I wonder what Marianne would have done if she like let herself dream a little bit and like experiment and not have to be the perfect daughter or their sons be the perfect sons. And like, what if we let ourselves fuck up a little bit and like explore? And I think like my road looks so much different than hers. And even like, she's like, oh, I want to retire, but like, I need to wait a couple more years and I don't like, and it's like, this whole paradigm, when you think about, how they grew up, is, very like traditional American dream values. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, the 90s came and like, I feel like everything just blew the fuck up. But like, it's just really interesting to me how now, at least, in my own story, when I look at my parents and my older generations, and what I hope for my own daughter one day is that she doesn't have to ever feel like she's learning all of this on her own. Like she is able to make mistakes, that she can experiment, that she can play and like really get to discover herself and not have to unlearn, the societal expectations of life, right? And like have to learn who she is again at 30 instead of like she can really learn and experiment throughout her whole life. And starting over doesn't have to be so scary, and doing something new doesn't have to be like earth shattering, right? Like it can be a process of always like growing and evolving and changing.
Yeah, for sure. So I think yours happened when you were 27, right? And then when I was reading that, I'm like, okay, there's a couple, like 27 just pops out, right? All the rock stars, and they died when they were 27. Jim Morrison, you're in California. And then also Nelson Mandela. He was in prison for 27 years, but he was never in prison in his own mind. Like the
Mhm.
crazy, I don't know if you know much. There's an amazing book called A Long Walk to Freedom. But this guy was in jail for 27 years, but he was never in prison. Like he would run for 45 minutes on the spot every morning just to like say, screw you, right? And like tried to running for 45 seconds on the spot. It's hard, right? But so your story, like, okay, my tagline for my company is your story is your superpower. And so yours is definitely your superpower. And all that other stuff, and even what we've talked about up to here, plus I'm sure obviously there's loads more, that makes you, that's why it's your superpower. Because now you're going forward, you've flipped the script, you've changed it, and now you can show other people, look, it doesn't have to just be like that. And that's how you did it.
Mhm. And I really love when you say like your story is your superpower, because I think even for me growing up, I was always so I was very in my body. I grew up a dancer, so dancing was always came very natural to me. I had no problem like being in my body, but for whatever reason, when it came to my voice and like sharing my story, I would always get so clammy. I always had the dreams where like I would scream but I couldn't actually scream, right? Like I always had, was nervous and over analyzing what I was about to say and how it would make someone feel, right? I was like your typical like people pleaser type. Like I just wanted to make everyone comfortable. Also a Gemini moon, so I can go like chameleon to like any situation. So when it comes to really my story being my superpower, and I think when you're in the middle of your story, right? And I mean your story is always going, but I think when you're in the middle of it, sometimes you don't. You're like, fuck this. Like this is just like hard and it's confusing and it's isolating, especially, when you could talk about your spiritual awakening. I know like mine was also just hard. And, 27 is a funny number because that's, Saturn takes 27 years to orbit around, which I think is really, really interesting. So that's why like my Saturn return really hit me. And then you'll hit it again in your 60s, which I find to be interesting. And for me, like this reclaiming of my story and actually being able to share my story was one of my biggest like hurdles that I moved through. I had to overcome so much fear around like judgments and being seen and even like the repercussions of like sharing my own truth and like finding my own enoughness in my truth. But the more that I would share and the more that I actually would be open and would be a little bit vulnerable, I realized that I wasn't the only one feeling these things. And I wasn't the only one that was going through these things. I think internet taught me anything. It taught me that like, I don't think I've ever had a unique experience to save my life. Like we've all, like at one point or another, we've all gone through these very like specific things in our own way through our own perspective. And that's what makes them unique. But I think it's so beautiful when you do get to start to share this part of you that maybe at one point started to be guarded. But for me, like sharing my story and living through my experience and really allowing myself to take risks and not feel like I had to, even like when I would meet my edges and I would be in those like fuck me moments, like I can't believe I have to like wake up tomorrow and do this all over again. That I never backed away. I kept showing up and I kept moving forward. And the more that I kept opening myself up and sharing, I realized how much my story was able to impact others and that we were able to actually make connections and come closer together and bond. And, I think that's sometimes what people are missing when it's like your story is your superpower because that's how people get to know you and love you. And it's like our story makes us, but then we're also, the rest is still unwritten. We're always creating our story. Like we get to take our experiences and we get to decide how they play out in our story, what they mean to us in our story. And so, yeah, it's been, for me, my story's been like the most impactful in my own journey. And then taking it to my clients in my own one-on-one work, we really develop our self-concept and really understand like who we are and how these experiences shape us and make us and what we get to do with them, right? Because we don't always have to live in that because this happened to me, I have to be this way, right? Like we can really like alchemize pain into pleasure and like really like, become the main character, right? So
Yeah. alchemize is the right word. And then, yeah, so then the other way your story is a superpower, you're saying at the end, is that you don't have to stay with that old story. You can start wherever you are and just create a new one. And what do you want it to look like? Make it up, literally. There's a bunch in there. The vulnerability piece is huge. I love it. For me, my heart is in group coaching. Like whenever there's something different about it, one-on-one's great too, but like something about group coaching, and that's what it is. The vulnerability where like one person becomes vulnerable and a bunch of things happen. The whole group's like, oh my God, you're feeling like that too. I didn't know anyone else felt that way. But then something else is that it opens them up that, okay, if that person's going to be vulnerable, then it's okay and it's safe for me to do it. And it's just, oh man, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it because I see it all the time, daily. And it's like, wow, it's so powerful. So I really love that about your story. And maybe we should go more into the company. What do you offer? Because I looked at your website. First of all, your website's beautiful. We're going to put the links and I want everyone to check it out. But I think there's a bunch of different things on offer there. So do you want to talk about that a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, one, I love what you said about group coaching because I think that was one of my largest misconceptions. I think for like me personally, like I've always been like a one-on-one girl and I'm a projector. So I'm like, I see people and like we go really, really deep. But it wasn't until I started joining group spaces and hosting my own group spaces that I saw like how powerful healing could be in a group space, like that we are meant to be in community. And so I just wanted to like mirror that back to you because that's something that like I know I need to learn as well. Like in my own journey, there is something magic up there and it's so special. But the thing that I do, I have a bunch of different things going on right now. As I kind of like sprinkled in here, you know, I've really dove into all the things. So I kind of have a very multifaceted, you know, coaching practice that I like to do. You know, I use the Akashic Records, I use Oracle, we do energy healing and guided meditation and journal, and journeying together. And, you know, I have custom one-on-one packages where I'm really leading you through this process of rebirth that's called Untamed, where we are taking 6 months to really break the rules, decondition from all of those limiting beliefs that are having you believe that you need to be a certain way or look a certain way or act a certain way, and really get you into like the becoming of who you are. I also have one-off calls, that's experience Unbound. So it's like really learning how to be with me, where we will open up the records, we'll dive into your subconscious, we'll really understand like the themes that are coming up in your life that we need to take a closer look at and learn how to like integrate something like an energy session, but actually into your everyday life. So it's not so like, okay, now you learned about a past life and like, you know, good luck, you know what I mean? Like have fun. I really like to break these themes down and understand how this is playing out in your physical reality currently in this present day, so we can learn the lesson that we need to learn and continuing to move forward as we continue to write our own story. And then I also offer Oracle readings as well. I have a group program coming out in June, so everyone will have to stay tuned for that. All kind of around the Saturn return of it all, but more to come on that. But those are kind of my 3 spaces that I really love to plug into right now: my Oracle readings, my energy sessions, and then my one-on-one coaching space.
Yeah, I love that. Oracle reading. So human design, all these things are things that you did, right? So this is another important thing where like you do the work on yourself and then you can give it out. Not just like you're reading a book. You actually been through it. You know what it's about. And
absolutely. I'm a life path 5. As I'm like, so I live through my experiences. And I mean, for me, I think everyone wants to be embodied in their work, but I think it's another thing, like, of course, being embodied in work, but really living in your work. And for me, I think that's the most important part of my story. Like, I love to coach people and heal people on things that I know that I have been able to move through and move myself through. And so, like, inner child healing is really big. Yes, I went and studied astrology and I studied human design and I studied numerology and I got my quantum theta healing, and like I did, of course you can like get all the certifications under the sun, but I think it's what you do with all this information. It's how you look at this information. I use astrology and human design and numerology in my one-on-one spaces because I think it's important when you're learning about someone that like, we get to know each other. And these tools for me, like I love to just piece them all together and like really bring them into like a unison with each other and have you see you in a whole new light. And, it's for me, like I've been on this journey for years of really diving in. I mean, now it's been almost like 5 years of being in this space. And, and then before that, just then being like a very psychic and intuitive, empathic child. So for me, it's all about really that embodiment piece and really feeling into the energy. And I don't think you can embody the energy if you're not willing to walk the walk and move it and feel it and like really bring it into your reality and move through something.
Yeah.
That's your question.
Yeah, of course it does. It's so important to walk the talk. That's why I highlighted it. I think Unbound, I see it says Megan Unbound. That's your Instagram handle at Megan Unbound.
Yeah.
And so what is Unbound? And your website is spiritunbound.com, right?
Yes. So I mean, I think Megan Unbound is exactly how she sounds. She is, you know what I mean? She's the woman that really she's climbing a mountain without a peak. Like there are no limitations. There are no rules. She marches to the beat of her own drum. Like she is no longer bound by expectations of living for other people's dreams, for feeling like she needs to be anything besides herself. Like it is really like becoming all of who she is and owning all of who she is and being and living the most bold way that you can possibly live, right? Like unafraid to make mistakes, like completely into her, like unto herself, right? Like she really just, she's that girl. And so like, that's what I want all of my clients to feel like. They are loud and proud and bold and beautiful and like really taking up as much space as they desire to take, because, we're only here in this body, in this life, this right now, in this time. So like, let's make the most of it, like let's go balls to the wall, And so
we only get like 4, if you're lucky, 27-year cycles, eh?
That's ready. Like, let's go.
So if you go on my LinkedIn or my website right now, you'll see that it says Next Steps Academy is the company. So if this is Phase 4 podcast, what we focus on expands. But my company, Next Steps Academy, your stories are superpower. But there's a tiny little tagline on the website and on LinkedIn, and it says, Unbounding Boundaries.
I love it.
We put ourselves in this box, right? And so we got to get ourselves out of the box. And when I saw Unbound, I was just like, oh my God. So do you have a podcast?
I do. It's also called Unbound, Untamed, and Unafraid. You can find it on Spotify, iTunes, and any other place that you listen to podcasts. But yeah, it's really funny because I think sometimes we like know that we're in the box, but we don't realize how bound we are in the box. We don't realize how comfortable we have made that box. And so when you start to really unbind yourself and really let yourself loose, it's a very interesting awakening experience, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Good time.
So I agree. We don't realize that we're in the box, but like, we don't even realize that sometimes we put ourselves in the box. Like we don't have to stay in the box. It's like a dog fence. You ever see the dog fence where it's an electric fence and the dog gets shocked? And so the dog won't go across the line, right? But if the dog breaks through the fence, he's kind of like, oh, that was okay. That wasn't too bad. Look at me now. I got a whole big field to play.
Exactly. Like I think a lot of the time people, it's like they don't realize that they are even unbound in the box, but they just have to, it's like, glass ceilings, like we have to just get on out of it.
So I want to highlight something about so the podcast Unbound, Untamed, and Unafraid, but it's also underneath that feminine healing, embodiment, and empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important part or distinction.
Yeah, the most important. I mean, I feel so strongly to work with women just because I am one. I've worked with so many. And for me, like, I think even just with the way the collective is shifting right now, even, my partner, like, just really having him come out of his hyper masculine and like leaning more into that feminine nature. We just need more of it. Like, I'm really here to help get folks, especially because I come from that corporate background, out of their hyper masculine, out of the packed calendar, packed social calendar, constantly filling the void and like pushing ourselves and making us sick, right? I've never been more sick than when I was in school and then after work, because it's just like you're constantly moving. I'm a projector. I'm like, I'm not meant to work that way. But, it really, for me, we need more of this feminine healing. I think people just, a lot of, especially women, they just crave peace and to just be and to like let themselves, and that is the divine feminine, like not having to push or chase or like struggle and like strive. Like there gets to be like this beautiful balance between the two within every single one of us. And when we can nurture her and empower her to be all that she is and be that creator, right? The life giver, then we can have our masculine come in and do what we need to do in order to bring this feminine creation to life. And so I really, in my work, focus on, empowering both and really bringing them into, sacred union together. So we're not constantly battling each other, even within ourselves and collectively in the world.
Yeah, so there's a thing there, right? Like where for so long it's been women's like just supposed to serve, right? Be the mother, be the wife, all this, stay at home moms. And like they weren't, it's not that you're not allowed, it's just that was the limiting belief, right? The societal expectation or whatever. And now it's changing and shifting. But when I hear you talking about astrology and stuff, does it have anything to do with astrology, that entire shift? Because even I'm like a dude and I'm feeling it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we're like just entering into the age of Aquarius right now. Like Saturn right now is in Pisces, which is like a very feminine, like very intuitive, very empathic, like, Pisces are like out of this world. So this, and Saturn is like the, very like grandfather energy, in my opinion, like very, we're here to learn lessons. Like we're here to, a little stern, loving, stern, And so I think there's just this really big collective shift that is really starting to happen where we are, realizing, because even like when we think of the pendulum swing, even of women from the, stay at home mom, this is all we're here to do. And then the boss babe era that then we like pendulum swung to the other end where it's like, Miss Independent, and which is amazing. And we all like want to be, unto ourselves and these sovereign beings. But then we also, if we swing the other way, too masculine, too driven, like putting so much pressure on ourselves to constantly produce and never rest, then these are the same people that wind up resentful. And now it's like we have all this independence and we're resentful that we're carrying like 3,000 backpacks worth of the emotional and like physical like life that we're here to live. And so really when it comes to these two places, it's like, how can we find, instead of swinging between the pendulum, like how can we find like a more cohesive balance between these two? And I mean, collectively, I think everyone's feeling it right now. Like it's really starting to make itself apparent, astrology and otherwise. Like it's becoming very, very clear that things need to change.
Yeah, some of the groups, I'm like, people get anxious, anxiety, and I'm like, it's too far to one end. I'm not saying like rainbows and unicorns all the time, but you can't be at either end of those extremes. You have to kind of come in the middle somehow. So as we begin to wind down, if this episode resonates, please like, subscribe, share, but no hard sell. And reach out to Megan. Her website's really awesome. I love the topography of your website too. And I think I ask everyone this question. This is the Phase 4 podcast, and Phase 4 of the 6-phase meditation by Vishen Lakhiani is all about creating a future 3 years from today. So where is Megan 3 years from today?
This is a really fun question because it's always so interesting to me. Like, I can't plan, like, I'm trying to plan like 3 months in advance, let alone like 3 years in advance. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm so in the moment. But when I think 3 years, I mean, I already, my partner and I are, just continuing to build our family and our life here together. For me, when it comes to Megan Unbound, I think it's really, seeing myself as this industry leader and speaker, helping women all over the world, hosting retreats and embodiment, retreats all over the world, and really just helping women continue to come into themselves and shine their light. Like, that's all I can ask for, is just continuing to spread my message and help as many people as I can by just like learning how to really love all of who they are.
Love it. Would it be in Joshua Tree or Jersey?
Joshua Tree. I love Jersey. Don't get me wrong. I love Jersey, but
so the Joshua Tree, right? National Park. And
yeah.
So I only seen these pictures. I think you two had an album called Joshua Tree. But
yeah.
Like, when I look at these pictures, the vibes, like you said at the beginning, it seems like a sacred space. And there's different places like this on the planet. For me, Mexico, the Mayans and Chichen Itza and the pyramids, but there's a bunch of them throughout the planet. So is Joshua Tree one of those places?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's something in the rocks. There's something in the rocks here. And you can see, the Joshua trees are so interesting. I'm just looking at my window and looking at them. Like, when they point in certain directions, like there's so many different vortexes, and it's just beautiful. Like, the indigenous cultures here, like, you can still see their like petroglyphs on the rocks. Like, it's a really special place. And so, yes, as much as I love New Jersey, and like that will forever be like a part of my soul. Like, I miss my grass and my trees and like my fairy, era, but Joshua Tree is just such a beautiful, beautiful place. There's something about being in the desert and being in vastness that you're able to just really see yourself here.
I'm with you. We moved outside of Toronto about 30, 40 minutes outside right before COVID, like a month before COVID. And we have a pond right out this window, and it's surrounded by trees, and it's like 4 acres with no one around. And the sirens, we don't hear sirens anymore. Yeah. It's so peaceful, right?
It's beautiful. I love it. I really do. I grew up in a rural area too, so I feel like I'm coming back to my roots. I like started very raw, went to the cities, and then found my way back. I'm like, back home. It's just living a more peaceful life, and that does wonders for the nervous system. They're not.
Yeah, the nervous system regulation. It is. You know how I explain that? It's like exactly that, right? Where you're sitting out there, even if you don't notice it, just trees and birds and nature, or concrete and sirens and horns. Like, you're getting it. It's coming into your awareness either way. But yeah, I digress. So before I ask my final question, I kind of like to let the guests take it wherever they want. And just like, if you have something to sell it. If you want to share something we didn't talk about, or even something we did talk about, whatever you think, wherever you want to go, take it away.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, we talked about so much. I have my one-on-one work. And so, of course, if any of you are interested in wanting to learn more and really understand the tools that I use, the Akashic Records, human design, astrology, energy healing, all of it, like, come into my world. You can follow me on Instagram at Megan Unbound. And then, the link is going to be in the show notes for my website. Go check it out. But yeah, I think for me, it's just been, I think people don't talk about the unbecoming and like really being in the process of unbecoming and how beautiful it can be, even when you're in that mixy, weird space when we don't exactly know where we're going, but we know we're going somewhere. And the fact that we know that we are going somewhere and we trust the process and we can honor ourselves with where we are at, that's all we can, that's all we can learn. And we can learn to do that too. Like, it's not something that, there's no secret formula. Like, we can all learn how to nurture ourselves in every stage of our life and bring ourselves closer to the things that we desire. And we don't have to settle or conform or make us feel any type of way about it. Like, we get to be our own authority, our own leader, and really live life the way that we want to. And like that, having that power and having that, like, like, I don't even know what to call it, but like having that like is something that like is a game changer.
Yeah. Megan, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. I'm so grateful too. It was so great connecting with you and talking with you. It was so fun.